Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stitches and Stories Studio, the podcast where we talk about writing, publishing, creative process, and building an author life that actually works for your brain instead of against it. This is episode 9. Last week, we talked about Word versus Google Docs, and we touched on Pro Writing Aid as part of the drafting and editing workflow. This week, I want to keep that theme going, but move a step deeper into the writing life. Because sooner or later, every writer reaches the point where the question is no longer, where do I need to write? The question becomes, how do I manage the manuscript, the notes, the scenes, the revisions, the formatting, the launch ideas, the podcast notes, the newsletter plans, the random inspiration that struck while I was doing something extremely inconvenient, and whatever version of Chapter 12 is currently trying to ruin my piece. That's where the workflow tools come in. So today, we're talking about 3 tools that can help you in very different ways: Scrivener, Atticus, and Notion. And what I like about this lineup is that they're not all trying to do the exact same job. They overlap some, yes, but each one solves a different kind of problem, and I have used one or currently am using one or all of these tools. Scrivener is about organizing the manuscript. Atticus is about writing and moving more smoothly towards a finished formatted book, and Notion is about organizing the writing life around the manuscript, the projects, the deadlines, the business side, the content calendar, and all the little moving parts that start multiplying the minute you take on writing seriously. If you've ever looked at author software and thought, why are there so many tools, and why do they all claim that they will transform me into a serene, efficient, creative genius? So let's sort through some of this together. Before I go any further, I want to say something I think writers really need to hear. You do not need every tool. You do not need the most expensive setup. You do not need the fanciest dashboard. You do not need to build a digital command center worthy of a moon landing if you really just want to finish Chapter 6. The right tool is the one that removes the friction. That's it. That's all you have to look for. Some writers do beautifully with a plain document and a folder system. Some want a whole drafting studio. Some want help organizing a large project or series, and some want help moving from draft to publish-ready book files. Some want a way to keep their deadlines, notes, launches, and project list from breeding in the dark. There's no gold medal for using the most elaborate workflow. There's only one useful question. Does this tool help me work more clearly, more consistently, and with less stress? That's it. I want to use that lens as a focus for this episode. Not hype, not trend chasing, just what problem does this solve? So let's get started with Scrivener. Scrivener has been around for years, and it has a loyal following for a reason. Literature and Latte describes it as a tool for writing, organizing, and preparing manuscripts with features like the binder, corkboard, outliner, and compile. Those names come up a lot in Scrivener conversations, and they matter because they tell you exactly what kind of tool this is. Scrivener is not just a blank page. It is a writing environment built around pieces, structure, and movement. The binder is where the project lives. It can hold your chapters, your scenes, your research, your notes, character sketches, setting details, and all the other things that tend to get themselves scattered across desktops and folders when you're trying to write a serious project or a series. Literature and Latte also describes the binder as a place where Scrivener organizes the elements of a project, including both the text that will become part of the final manuscript and the supporting materials like the research and notes. And that's a big deal if you're writing something long, because one giant document starts to feel unwieldy after a while. And it's fine for some writers, but others want to see the book in parts. They want chapter 1 here, chapter 2 there, scene cards over there, research tucked in over there, character notes close at hand, and the ability to move things around without cutting and pasting half the universe. And this is where Scrivener shines. The corkboard gives you a visual way to arrange and rearrange sections like index cards. The outliner gives you a more structured bird's eye view, And in practical terms, this means Scrivener is wonderful for a writer whose brain wants to work in chunks. If you're someone who thinks in scenes, or you like to shuffle things around, or you're managing multiple threads within a novel, Scrivener can be an incredibly powerful tool. It's also useful if your work is research heavy. Maybe you're writing historical fiction, science fiction, or even nonfiction, or any project where you need quick access to reference material and notes while you draft. Having those things inside the project instead of scattered everywhere can make a real difference. Now, I want to be honest about the downside. Scrivener has a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not impossible and it's not hostile. But it does have layers, and if you're someone who gets overwhelmed easily by a structure or feature-rich environment, you may open Scrivener and feel like the program politely expects you to become some sort of person who enjoys tabs, metadata, and options before breakfast. Some writers love that. Other writers feel intimidated and immediately tired. Both reactions are completely valid. So my plain language take on it is Scrivener is best for the writer who wants a manuscript studio. It's less about simplicity and more about control. It is for building the book in pieces, keeping those pieces organized, and then compiling them when you're ready to export the whole thing. If your biggest struggle is managing the manuscript itself, Scrivener deserves serious consideration. So let's think about who is Scrivener best for. It's especially well suited for the novelist, series writer, research-heavy writers, and people who genuinely like to see the shape of a project. If you want to zoom in and out of a scene, then zoom over to some notes, or see the skeleton of the whole book, Scrivener is built just for that. So if Word or Google Docs starts to feel like one long hallway with no doors, then Scrivener may be the place where the house gets filled with rooms. Let's talk about Atticus. Atticus has a very different energy. Its official site describes it as an all-in-one book writing and formatting tool for creating professional print books and ebooks. It emphasizes that it works on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Chromebook and can be used with or without an internet connection, and exports to EPUB, PDF, and DocX files. Now that last part matters a lot because it tells you exactly what Atticus is trying to solve. Atticus is not just asking, how do I help you write? It's also asking, how do I help you get this book into a form that looks professional and ready for publication? So where Scrivener leans in toward the drafting and structure and organization, Atticus leans towards writing plus formatting. That makes it very attractive to indie authors who want fewer steps between the manuscript and the finished files. Atticus lets you import existing work, organize chapters right inside the program, and preview formatting while moving toward a print or ebook ready result. Its site emphasizes formatting themes, device previews, chapter and front and back matter support, and professional layout without requiring advanced design skills. And that's a strong pitch for authors who are tired of handoffs. Maybe draft in one place, clean up in another, format in a third, export somewhere else, then fix a weird chapter heading issue at midnight because one platform decided your scene breaks should feel adventurous. Atticus is trying to shrink all that chaos. And I think that's where it makes sense. If you're the kind of writer who wants a cleaner path from draft to finished book files, Atticus is very appealing. It's especially appealing if you're a self-published author and you're trying to work out your workflow, your formatting. It's something that you don't want to wrestle with every single time that you write a book. So, again, in the honesty corner, Atticus may feel less robust than Scrivener if your main desire is deep project architecture. It is not really trying to be the same kind of manuscript laboratory. It is trying to be more of an all-in-one production tool. That difference matters because if you choose software based on the wrong goal, you end up being disappointed by that tool. And that tool may actually be really good at something else, just not what you need. So in plain language, Atticus is the strongest for authors who want to get the book done, get it dressed for the party, all in the same general space. It's about reducing the tool juggling, and it's about writing while keeping one eye on the final product. And again, a lot of indie authors, this is a very practical advantage. So who's it best for? Again, self-publishing indie authors, authors who want a more streamlined workflow, and authors who care a lot about presentation, but not about making the whole formatting deal a side quest. It makes sense for people who like the idea of a one-time purchase rather than a monthly subscription treadmill. Atticus currently markets itself as a one-time payment with ongoing updates. So if Scrivener is for building the book, Atticus is for building the book and getting it polished into something that looks ready to walk out into the world. Side note, Scrivener is also a one-time payment for their license as well. So kind of a recap, Scrivener versus Atticus. This is really kind of the heart of the situation or the conversation, because a lot of writers will look at Scrivener and Atticus and wonder whether they are direct competitors. And the answer is sort of, but not exactly. They do have overlap, as I mentioned before. They both let you write and organize a manuscript, but they're strongest in different places. So Scrivener is stronger as a drafting and organizational environment. Atticus is stronger as a writing plus formatting platform. Side note, Atticus also does have a relationship with Pro Writing Aid where you can do your checks, grammar checks and things as you go. So here's the cleanest way to explain the difference. Choose Scrivener if your biggest problem is manuscript chaos. If you need to break the project into scenes, move scenes around, keep the research within the manuscript, and work in a very structure-first environment, then Scrivener is going to make the most sense. Atticus is good if your biggest problem is workflow sprawl. Between drafts and publication, if you want fewer tools, easier formatting, and a smoother path toward the finished files, Atticus is going to make the most sense for you. Now, neither of these is automatically better. The better one depends on what problem you're trying to solve. And I really think the question writers should ask before buying any software is not which tool is the hottest right now, not which one does the internet seem most emotional about this week, but what is my current process, and what about that process is frustrating me? Because that's the answer that is going to help you find the best solution or the best tool that's going to be worth your time. Now, another aspect of being an author, aside from the writing, is keeping track of everything else. And that's where something like Notion comes in. And Notion is a tool that I use. I am not receiving any sort of endorsement or any payment from that company for telling you this. I'm just sharing it because it is something that I'm using right now. So it's a bit of a wild card here. It's not really a writing manuscript tool in the same way Scrivener and Atticus are. Notion's official materials describe it as a connected workspace for documents, projects, and tasks, and their help center and product page emphasize databases, multiple views, dashboards, timelines, calendars, and the ability to keep related work in one place. That means Notion is better understood as a project manager and an information system. And for authors, this can be incredibly useful because once writing becomes more than a private hobby, there's a lot of moving pieces around a manuscript. There are revision deadlines, launch tasks, cover briefs, arc lists, newsletter content, social posts, podcast episodes, whether you have your own podcast or you want to be on a podcast, research notes, brand ideas, release calendars, submission trackers, budgets, store links, bonus content. Somewhere in the middle of all that is an actual book. So Notion shines where you need a place to move all the moving parts outside of the manuscript. Its database views are one of the biggest strengths. You can view information as a table, a board, a timeline, a calendar, a list, or a gallery, and create multiple views for the same information. And that flexibility is extremely useful for authors whose brain may need different visual angles on the same work. Maybe your launch tasks make sense in board view, maybe your deadlines are better on a calendar, maybe your production schedule makes sense in a timeline. Your episode ideas or newsletter plans work better as a database that you can sort and tag. And Notion can give you all of that flexibility. And that is why I see it less as a competitor to Scrivener and Atticus, but more as a supporting system that works around them. And you might draft in Scrivener, but manage your release plan in Notion. You might write and format in Atticus and still use Notion for editorial calendars, launch checklists, and content planning. And that's kind of the sweet spot. Now, I do not generally think of Notion as the best primary drafting tool for most novelists, even though you absolutely can write in it. It's a good place for jotting down notes, and maybe some drafting ideas, but it's not specifically for manuscripts in that strictest sense. But it can again be an awesome author command center. Now, let me give you a gentle warning. Notion can be kind of a productivity craft project. It's so customizable, you can absolutely spend 2 hours happily building the world's most elegant content dashboard while Chapter 9 continues to rot over there in the corner while it's being neglected. So Notion is powerful, but it can also be a procrastination tool that takes you away from your novel. So just kind of be careful of that, because it is a lot of fun to work in. Notion's going to make the best sense for authors juggling multiple projects, multiple deadlines, or multiple roles. If you're a writer, publisher, marketer, podcaster, newsletter sender, and keeper of 17 lists like me, then having one place to connect all the dots, tasks, and schedules can be a huge relief. And if your life feels like sticky notes have unionized, then Notion may be the best place for you. Now, here's a little bit on how they can work together. This is really the part that I hope you take away from this episode. And you don't necessarily have to pick only one of these and swear loyalty to it forever. You could get the best results from a combination of things. Say Scrivener plus Notion, which is my current situation, is a smart combination if you want deep manuscript organization and a separate system for deadlines, launches, content calendars, and project management. And I'm currently writing a 10-book series, so I find Scrivener to be very helpful to me right now. Atticus plus Notion is a smart combination if you want more streamlining, right to formatting workflow, but still need a place to manage the business side of being an author. And honestly, even Word and Google Docs plus Notion can be a very solid setup if your actual problem is not drafting at all, but the pileup of tasks and information around that work. And that's why I think it's helpful to separate these tools by role. So again, Scrivener is going to organize the manuscript. Atticus is going to organize it in a writing to formatting path. Notion organizes everything else in your life around the book. And once you see them that way, the conversation around software becomes much less overwhelming, and you stop asking yourself, which of these apps am I supposed to marry? And you start asking things like, which part of my workflow needs help? Some quick practical examples to help out a little bit more. If you're drafting long science fiction novels like I do with multiple plot threads, a made-up history, research notes, and a lot of scenes that need to move around sometimes, Scrivener makes more sense for me than Atticus does at the moment, although I have used Atticus in the past. If you are a romance author publishing quickly and you care a lot about getting clean professional files for ebook and print without too many extra handoffs, Atticus can be the most appealing, and I have written most of my romance novels in Atticus. If you're releasing books, running a newsletter, which I hope you are, tracking promotions, and those promotions can be through BookFunnel, as we've talked about before, planning podcast episodes, again, whether you are running a podcast like I am here, or you're going to be a guest on a podcast, and you need to keep track of those dates, or if you're trying to remember which cover designer needed which file by when. Notion may help solve all of those problems in one place for you with a lot less stress. And of course, some writers are going to listen to all that and say, actually, I'm doing just fine with Word and a few folders and a checklist, and that is completely valid. And if that works for you, that is beautiful. Keep doing it. But this is not about collecting software like decorative teacups. It's about identifying pain points, honestly, and then trying to find the answer. So a few questions before you buy and spend your money on a new tool, whether it's the ones I spoke of today or any tool. You want to ask yourself, what part of your current process feels clumsy? Is my problem drafting, organizing, formatting, or managing my deadlines? Do I actually want more features, or do I need less friction? Am I the kind of writer who enjoys building a system, or do systems become another form of procrastination? And do I need a tool for the manuscript itself, or for the wider business of being an author? And if you answer any of those questions honestly, the right choice becomes a little bit clearer. So my bottom line recommendation is, in the most simplest terms, if your manuscript feels chaotic, Scrivener. If your path from draft to finished document feels fragmented, Atticus. And if the rest of your writing life feels out of whack, then Notion is going to be your goal. So, in closing of this week's tool conversation, Scrivener, Atticus, and Notion, 3 tools, 3 different strengths, 3 different ways to make your writing life more manageable. And really the takeaway is not that any one of these tools is magic. It is more that it's the right workflow and lower resistance in your process and in your life. It can make work easier to return to, make you enjoy the process. It can help you spend less time hunting for things, untangling your process, or reinventing the wheel every week or every time you sit down at your computer. That doesn't mean writing becomes easy. We all know better than that, but it does give you less friction in the day-to-day of your writing, and that is truly a gift. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope this helped. I hope it helped you think a little bit more clearly about which tools might actually support your writing life and which ones may be just shiny distractions and wearing very confident marketing. So until next time, keep writing, keep building, keep making space in the stories for the stories that only you can tell. Just a little side note again, I just want to reiterate, I do not receive anything in return from any of these companies or softwares that I spoke about today. I'm just speaking from personal experience. All these tools I have used in the past or I currently use. So don't forget to reach out to me at Millie, M-I-L-L-Y, at stitchesandstories.com. You can visit the website at stitchesandstories.com, and you can find me as Melissa L. Story on socials like Facebook, Insta, X, and Substack. And if you got benefit from the podcast today and want to support me, I would love that. It would mean so much to me. You can do that on Substack or over at buymeacupofcoffee.com, also under Melissa L. Story. And depending on where you're listening to me today, you can listen to this podcast on Substack, Spotify, and YouTube. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.